So I actually didn't want to. I started this YouTube channel a little bit ago to just talk about gaming and not the politics of gaming. I feel like it was very important for me not to really talk about the politics in gaming because it's always talked about, you know? Someone's always talking about sales and, awards or things like that. And I'm just not interested in that type of discourse. I'm not interested in talking about that anymore because how many times are you going to actually talk about such things? It gets old, right? My objective with this YouTube channel is to actually talk. Me being a gamer, right? Me being a gamer, I wanted to show other people, that weren't into gaming, what gaming was about. Or maybe they were interested in it, and I wanted to kind of show them how it would be for gaming. That was the objective to this channel. But what I'm noticing in the gaming space, the IGNs, the GameSpots, you know what I mean? The Twitter, the Xbots, the ponies, the Nintendrones. These are the derogatory names for each fan base, right? What I am noticing is that everything is increasingly becoming very political. And I'm not talking about woke. I'm talking about political as in there's sides to gaming, which sucks. It absolutely sucks that gaming has devolved into such things. So there was an award show, the VGAs, as you probably already know. I didn't watch it, and I vowed not to watch it about a year or two ago because Jeff Keighley tends to overhype his stuff. I'm not going to sit there for 5 hours and watch this show for 2 game reveals. And I'm just not interested in awards anyway. So that was the thing that I wasn't really quite interested in. But I do like the announcements. And what I've been noticing is a couple of different things with these IGNs and these GameSpots, and all these other publications that tend to report gaming news, quote unquote, right? They feel the need to be the arbiter of, of truth and the arbiter of, what's right and morals and everything like that. And I'm just kind of sick of it. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it in particular because so this Saturday I will be talking about Callisto Protocol, right? The Callisto Protocol and how can they improve. The VGAs actually had some games that was fundamentally flawed, but they needed a second chance, such as Death Stranding. We don't know exactly what they're going to do. Death Stranding was lacking in combat and things of that nature. And, they get a sequel. And when it comes to American games for some reason, or American-made games, or something that's not from the East or Japanese, it gets like this crazy vitriol in the gaming space as if they didn't deserve to actually be a part of the gaming space. Callisto Protocol is one of those games that they deserve a chance. They made some mistakes, but but they deserve a chance to right their wrongs, just like the Order 1886 and their developers. And what ends up happening in the gaming space is that Eastern games tend to, how can I put it? A lot of the problems from Eastern games are overlooked because the Eastern games it is looked at as either being charming or that's their style. And a lot of Eastern games and game developers get away with shitty game design or antiquated game design. Things, and a lot of the time the Western games are trying their best to give you more bang for your buck in terms of like visuals. Because, why the hell would you get a PS5 or a computer or a GPU or, the next generation console if graphics didn't matter, So when they focus on graphics, it's like people just instantly become like, it's unsavory for a developer to really focus on their craft in terms of the look of the game. Elden Ring received Game of the Year, and quite frankly, I'm just going to be blunt, and I know a lot of people are not going to like it. There are massive issues with that game that was completely overlooked because of the Japanese charm. I find that as a gamer pretty irritating, to say the least. Very, very irritating. The fact that they can get away with it. The fact that Nintendo can get away with not advancing. I'm not even just talking about graphics. I'm just talking about gameplay design. How they can sit there and not push it and not push their game design. How, the thing that Elden Ring ended up doing is making their Souls game an open world game and calling it a different name and giving you a horse and giving you an open world. In the open world, despite the fact that it has very good art design, it is half-baked. What does the weather have anything to do in the game? Like, there's no purpose for the weather. There's no purpose for the space. It took a hit in game design because they're not used to making an open world game. And yes, you should give them a chance, right? But they had a lot of funding for this game. And a lot of Japanese games the fans of the video game space, they tend to overlook it. I definitely, and let me just clear this up. God of War is a game that, after playing it again, I don't think that it should have gotten Game of the Year. I think that Horizon should have gotten Game of the Year. That's what I truly believe. Horizon is one of those games. It's not quite Western, but it's not Japanese either. I guess you could consider it Western, but you know what I mean. Western is considered American typically in the gaming space. But they sat there and they did not. It didn't win shit. Had awesome sound design. It had an awesome graphics. It had awesome art style. It had awesome gameplay, and it didn't get anything. That's wild to me when I see that. That is absolutely wild. I can't get down with that. I can't get down with the gaming community allowing that to happen. You know what I mean? All because of politics. This was a David and Goliath type situation. That's what this was all about. This was a David and Goliath situation where Sony is the giant and the Japanese games are, David. There were a lot of flaws in Elden Ring, and it shouldn't have gotten Game of the Year, just like, God of War Ragnarok shouldn't have got Game of the Year because of its problems. And to be honest with you, it had a lot of things going for it. The thing that held it back is PS4. It could have advanced, but they did everything in their power to try to advance this game while still keeping it cross-gen. You know what I mean? And giving you a lot of quality with it. They've done everything that they possibly can. They've actually given you a new playable character. They could have just left it as Kratos. They could have left it just like that. But they gave him a whole new move set. Like, come on. And people are going to sit there and talk about how Elden Ring is like the tip top of game development, which pisses me off because it's really a Souls game. And they reuse so many assets. Atreus, he's not reused. He's not reused. And what people are doing is they tend to be they have more scrutiny for Western games and definitely more scrutiny for Sony games. This is not about a Sony situation though. This is more along the lines of the Japanese typically are able to really not push boundaries in their game design. They just, to me, do the bare minimum. And, most people can sit there and say that I don't want a complicated game. I don't want cutscenes. I don't want a story-driven game. I don't want narrative. I just want a fun game. But what makes this game not fun? Because it has cutscenes, you automatically write it off because it has cutscenes. You automatically write Horizon off because it looks good. You didn't want to give it any kind of play. You didn't want to give it play because you're so used to the gameplay tropes of a Japanese game. It's just sickening to me. Honestly, I'm not mad at the awards because I don't care about the awards. It mainly speaks about the game in space and its fans and its fandom and its clientele. That's what I'm irritated about. Because to be honest with you, they're for instance, Callisto Protocol. It's new studio. They didn't really push boundaries gameplay wise as they should. and they get crucified for it. Like it's not that much different from, say Dead Space, or maybe Resident Evil if you want to take a look at that, or The Last of Us. It has some flaws, but it got crucified. People calling it, giving it like 4s and 5s. Like really, 4s and 5s? Do y'all think that's fucking fair? But Elden Ring, they can't even add a swimming animation. You know what I'm saying? They can't add a swimming animation. They can't add a crawl animation. I mean, you know what I mean? Like a shimmy animation. They're stuck on, I don't want to make these animations because of charm. Like what are we doing here? And then equally so, you get a lot of fans that say that they don't want them to take this route because they feel like it's going to diminish the game, and they don't really have an argumentative, a stance on this. It's just the answer is no. The answer is no to them. I don't find that to be fair. This is not about, being, I guess somebody can interpret this as being racist, you know what I mean? Or whatever the fuck, I like my Japanese games just like the next person. As a matter of fact, some of the best games that's the best games of all time are Japanese games to me, such as Shadow of the Colossus. I can't help it because Sony made that shit, but Shadow of the Colossus is one of my favorite games of all time. Gravity Rush is one of my favorite games of all time. But you know what's really interesting about those games? They push the fucking boundaries. They push the boundaries of game design while still having the Japanese DNA. Gravity Rush 2 didn't have to go that hard on their game design. They could have just kept it fucking simple, and they tried to make that shit into a AAA game. You know what I'm saying? And to no avail. Why? Because the fandom seems to think that when a game has a certain particular quality, it's shitty. It's just, it's wild. It's wild to me. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. But that's my point, though. My point is literally like, y'all not gonna hold these fucking people accountable. Y'all not gonna hold the Japanese accountable for not trying to push the boundaries. They can get away with reusing assets from 6, 7, 8 years ago in a new IP. Nintendo can sit there and not innovate on their hardware, or not push any boundaries, or not have new IPs. You just let them do it because what? They're one of their own kind. Like what are we doing here? That shit's wild to me. That's wild to me. I feel like as gamers, you guys can't critically think. You need to be ashamed of yourself. Truthfully, you do. You need to be ashamed of yourself.